We're talking Shakespeare this week, and Shakespeare is one of those authors that we can argue about perhaps eternally, or at least perennially. The questions of what kind of guy was he? What was his personal life like? That old question of, did the man named William Shakespeare we have historical record of really write all the plays? Probably. But we have all these questions, and even when we exhaust the questions about him and his mystery, and how could a man born in a little English town in 1564, how could he be the greatest writer of his generation, maybe ever? Well, in our last video, we talked about how perhaps Shakespeare, can't be called hands down the greatest English writer ever, but he's certainly the greatest of our English dramatists so far. We'll see. Perhaps in this generation or future generations will rise a dramatist greater than him, but one hasn't risen yet that's greater than him. And so I wanted to hang out a little bit today with a speech by him that isn't one of his most famous, but that I've been spending some time working on and memorizing, and I wanted to use it to illustrate some of the reasons why we call Shakespeare so great as a writer. So this speech is from Hamlet, this famous play. You may have heard of it. And this is from Act 1, Scene 5. This is a little before the famous to be or not to be speech. And Hamlet's father's ghost has just appeared to Hamlet and told him that he didn't die of natural causes like everyone thinks. He actually was murdered. And his father's ghost fades off into the distance after asking Hamlet to remember him and avenge him. And Hamlet says the following thing. O all ye host of heaven, O earth, what else? And shall I couple hell? O fie! Hold my heart, and thou my sinews grow not instant old, but bear me stiffly up. Remember thee? Aye, well, memory holds a seat in this distracted globe. Remember thee? Yea, from the table of my memory I'll wipe away all trivial fond thoughts, all saws of books, all forms, all pressures past, that youth and observation copied there. And thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter, yea, by heaven. It's a speech of about 13 lines. It's almost sonnet length, but it doesn't rhyme, and so we wouldn't treat it like a sonnet. But it has that kind of finality that a sonnet has, of being a speech that kind of begins and ends, contemplating a similar image. You probably noticed that the word heaven is used in the first line I quoted and the last line I quoted. And within those 13 lines, there's a meditation on what to do with what the ghost just told him. So it starts, O all ye host of heaven, O earth, what else? And shall I couple hell? O fie! What's going on here? Well, the diction is old-fashioned, but he's just seen a ghost, and he's living in a sort of medieval Christian Denmark, where if you see a ghost, you might call upon the supernatural powers of heaven to defend you. But it's interesting that he starts by saying, "O all ye hosts of heaven," and then he kind of descends, "O earth." He's remembering, here I am in this sort of middle realm. And then he says, "And shall I couple hell?" That means, should I also call on the powers of hell? And then he says, "Oh, fie," this sort of rejection. But I also think that "oh, fie," and you can play it many different ways. I kind of liked playing it as a sort of like, not just the idea of hell bothers him, but he's frustrated and overwhelmed. He just saw his father's ghost, and his father's ghost just said he got murdered. It's very difficult. He says, "Oh, fie," and he almost loses his composure. And then he says, Hold my heart, and thou my sinews. Grow not instant old, but bear me stiffly up. He's kind of calling not on heaven and earth anymore. He's kind of talking to the parts of his body. He's moved from the external to the internal. Heart, don't grow old. Sinews, he's saying to the sinews, don't grow old, don't grow instant old, but bear me stiffly up, like help me keep standing. I'm in a bit of a predicament. And then he has this double remember me, and I mean this is where the use of short and long sentences and phrases in this speech become very masterful. So when he says, "You, my sinews, grow not instant old," that's one whole line. But "bear me stiffly up" is the end of that sentence, but it's on the next line. "Bear me stiffly up," period, and then "remember thee?" question mark. "Bear me stiffly up" and "remember thee" are one line. And so if you have those two lines together, and "you, my sinews, grow not instant old, but bear me stiffly up, remember thee," we've got one sentence that's a line and a half. It's pretty long. But then "remember thee" is kind of its own expression. Technically, it's not a complete sentence, but it's punctuated as "remember thee?" question mark. It's a short half sentence which kind of breaks up the flow of the speech and gives us sort of this punctuated, like, okay, what's the point? Remember thee. "I, thou poor ghost, while memory holds a seat in this distracted globe." Once again, that "I, thou poor ghost, while memory holds a seat in this distracted globe," that's another line and a half. And then after "in this distracted globe," we get another "remember thee," which is the second half of another line. So we have this kind of this pattern that he's creating of a line and a half long sentence and then a "remember thee," a line and a half long sentence and then a "remember thee." He's creating a pattern. But once you create a pattern, if you're a good artist, you set up expectation and patterns, and then you break it. So after the second "remember thee," we have, "Yea, from the table of my memory I'll wipe away all trivial fond records, all sauce of books, all forms, all pressures past, that youth and observation copied there, and thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter." That's one whole sentence. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 lines. So we have 1.5 lines, "remember thee," 1.5 lines, "remember thee," 6.5 lines of the next sentence. This is a masterful patterning of language. And, it's one of those things people talk about, like, well, it must be easy to write like Shakespeare. You just kind of write old-fashioned and rhymey. There's no rhyme in this. Shakespeare is not showing off his rhyme here. He's showing off how he can use the iambic pentameter line, ba-dum, 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 and do whatever he wants with it. He can use the iambic pentameter line. He can use 6.5 of them in a row to write a really long sentence. He can also, like in the second line, "And shall I couple hell? Oh, fie, hold my heart." That's really like 3 separate expressions in one line. He's showing us, I can do whatever I want with the grammar of these lines. And I can create energy and momentum as I stretch a sentence across multiple lines. And then I can stop you in your tracks with a, "Oh, fie," or "remember thee?" question mark. And I can slow you down, and then I can give you that pattern again, and then I can speed you up and slow you down. It's so masterful. And I think this is one of the things that it's very difficult to explain when you're talking about how to evaluate poetry. You need to actually pay attention to how the grammatical structures and the metrical structures are interacting with one another. And this is one of the things that free verse, which is something we're going to talk about in a future episode, free verse can sometimes struggle with. If you don't have the iambic pentameter line, you don't have that metrical structure to use as the frame to hang the varying patterns, the melodies and harmonies, as it were, of the grammar onto. And so the relationship between the meter and the grammar becomes a place of play and a place of invention for the poet. One of the things I love about this last line, unmixed with baser matter, period, yes, by heaven, exclamation point. So we have a return, 6.5 lines after the second remember thee, to a short sentence, or really it's a short exclamation, that's in its own grammatical unit after the period of unmixed with baser matter, period, yes, by heaven, exclamation point. And that yes by heaven, as we mentioned earlier, is calling back to the all you host of heaven, exclamation point, which is the expression that begins the speech. So there's kind of a heaven sandwich with a meditation on memory and one's body and one's mind. Let's talk a little bit about the body and the mind. So we start with, oh, hold my heart. Oh, my sinews, right? Sinews mean kind of muscles and all the tissues of your body. And then we go into the mind. Remember thee, I, thou poor ghost, while memory holds a seat in this distracted globe. This word globe is interesting. Commentators mostly think, well, it refers to the human head. It's like a globe. But, of course, the Globe Theater is a theater that Shakespeare's acting troupe acted in. And so there's both the distracted globe of the human head, but there's also the distracted globe of the people, the audience that he's playing to. I kind of like, maybe there's some mumbling up in front and somebody's trying to act Hamlet, maybe in rehearsals, and they're like, in this distracted globe, calling out the people who are interrupting the actors. And also, there's a third globe, right? There's the distracted globe of the head, the globe of the theater, and the globe of the world. The world is a distracted place. But Hamlet has just been given a mission by the ghost of his father to avenge him. And he's saying, look, this globe, whether it's the human head, the context of the theatrical world, or the actual whole planet, it's distracted, and I need to be undistracted. Remember thee, yea, from the table of my memory, I'll wipe away all trivial fond records, all saws of books, all forms, all pressures past that youth and observation copied there. The momentum that these lines create is so great. So he's saying, look, how am I going to remember you? Well, everything that's in my memory, I'm going to wipe away. All trivial fond records. Fond is sort of a pejorative term there. Like all this like worthless stuff that I think about, I'm wiping it all away. I'm wiping away saws of books. Saw would mean like I don't know, like a memorable quote or sort of like a pithy or witty saying. He's like, all the, you go on social media and people post like inspiring quotes. Yeah, he's going to take all of those out of his memory. They don't matter. All forms, all pressures past. This is interesting. There's some Renaissance epistemology going on here. So the idea of a form being pressed in your mind, or even an ancient Greek idea of the form of an object, sort of residing in your mind after you've looked at it. The pressure. There was this idea in the Renaissance and afterward in modern epistemology that, when we see something, it creates pressure on our eyes, which creates pressure on our brain, which leaves little images, right? Little imprints of what we see. All those I'm going to get rid of. He says, all the things that youth and observation made in me, they're gone. And thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain. Whew. It's an extreme statement. Hamlet is in great emotional and moral distress here. But he's making this incredibly overwrought statement, but he's just trying to hold on to sanity. And he sees this sort of getting this, yes, if I can get everything out and I can get your commandment in, I will have succeeded. And I think this allows him to then say, it's unmixed with baser matter. There's sort of a purity of intent and memory. Yes, by heaven. So the calling on the hosts of heaven and the thinking through how he's going to actually do honor to what he just saw lets him sort of swear on heaven at the end that that's what he will do. There's more to say about this. I just wanted to kind of talk through why I was so excited about this kind of minor speech in Hamlet and how, this speech they would easily forget in the face of the to be or not to be, or the sword fights or something like that in Hamlet. This little speech illustrates the care and the poetic and intellectual and emotional and physical structures that Shakespeare is always attending to when he writes. So I hope this has given you a taste of why maybe Shakespeare is one of, if not the best poets in the English tradition. Thanks so much.